I want to confess a secret. You know that feeling when you have plans to go out for dinner with friends? But you are tired, you are dreading it. You don't want to put on pants. You don't want to drive in the rain. You don't want to listen to Bob talk about his gallstones for 2 hours. And then the phone rings. It's Bob. He says, "Hey, I'm sorry. I have a headache. Can we reschedule in polite society?" You say, "Oh, that's too bad. Bob, I hope you feel better." But inside your heart, you are screaming, "Yes, hallelujah." You hang up the phone. You take off your shoes. You make a cup of tea, and you feel a wave of euphoria wash over you. The night is yours again. At 75 years old, I realize something important. I have that feeling all the time now. Why? Because I have stopped making plans. I have stopped pretending. I have stopped maintaining friendships that feel like work. If you looked at my contact list today, it is very short. If you looked at my calendar, it is gloriously empty. By society's standards, I am a failure. Society tells us that a successful senior is surrounded by friends, playing bridge, hosting dinner parties, and being the life of the community center. They tell us that loneliness will kill us faster than smoking, but I am here to tell you the other side of the story. The side nobody talks about. I have 0 friends. 0. I have acquaintances. Yes, I have neighbors I wave to, but friends, people I feel obligated to call, people I have to entertain, none. And honestly, I have never been happier. I have discovered the massive, unspoken difference between being lonely and being free. How did I get here? Did I become a hermit overnight? No. It was a gradual process. I call it the great shedding, like a tree in autumn. As we age, we naturally shed the leaves that no longer serve us. When I turned 70, I took a hard look at my social circle. I realized my friends fell into 3 categories. Category 1, the work friends. These were the people I spent 40 years with. We talked about sales targets, bosses, and office gossip. But when I retired, I realized we had nothing in common. Without the common enemy of the workplace, we sat in silence. Why force a conversation that died 5 years ago? Category 2, the activity friends. These were the guys I played golf with, or the couples we went to dinner with. But as I got older, my energy changed. I didn't want to play golf. I didn't want to drink wine until 10 p.m. And when I stopped doing the activity, they stopped calling. I realized they weren't friends with me, they were friends with the golfer. Category 3, the energy vampires, the worst kind. You know these people. Maybe it's a cousin. Maybe it's an old high school buddy. Every time you talk to them, you feel exhausted afterwards. They only talk about themselves. They only talk about their diseases. They only complain about the government, the weather, the neighbors. At Shopdazich. Your energy is a limited battery. You wake up with 50%. If you spend an hour with a vampire, you are down to 10%. You have nothing left for yourself. So, I made a ruthless decision. I stopped calling them back. I stopped making the effort. People say relationships take work. I say at 75, I am retired. I am done working. If a relationship requires hard labor to maintain, it is not a friendship, it is a job, and I quit. Watching them fade away was scary at first. The silence was loud. But then, the silence settled. And in that silence, I found something I hadn't felt in decades: peace. Let me tell you about the exact moment I decided to quit society. It was 2 years ago. I received an invitation in the mail. Heavy cardstock, gold lettering, the 50th high school reunion. Against my better judgment, I went. I put on my uncomfortable suit. I polished my shoes until they hurt. I drove 45 minutes to a banquet hall that smelled of stale carpet and cheap perfume. I walked in, expecting connection, nostalgia, maybe a spark of the old days. Instead, I walked into a theater of the absurd. I stood in the corner with a glass of lukewarm punch and watched. What I saw was not friendship. It was a competition. It was a performance art piece titled, "Look How Well I Am Doing." I drifted into a conversation with a group of men I used to play football with. Within 3 minutes, the Grandchild Olympics began. My grandson just got into Harvard, one said, puffing out his chest like a pigeon. Well, my granddaughter is a violin prodigy. Another countered, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. They weren't sharing joy. They were establishing dominance. They were using the achievements of a generation they barely understood to prop up their own fragile egos. I nodded. I smiled. I said, wow, at the appropriate times. But inside, I felt a deep, creeping exhaustion. I didn't care. I truly, deeply, did not care. Then, I moved to another table. This was the organ recital. You know this conversation. It is the favorite pastime of the elderly. My doctor says my cholesterol is up. Oh, that's nothing. I just had my hip replaced on Tuesday. Well, I'm taking 12 pills a day. They were trading symptoms like baseball cards. It was a race to the bottom to see who was the sickest, who was the most fragile, who had the most dramatic medical history. I looked around the room. I saw fear masked as conversation. I saw people terrified of silence, terrified of irrelevance, clinging to each other not because they liked each other, but because they were afraid to be alone. I felt like an alien. I looked at these people I had known for 60 years, and realized I didn't know them at all. And more importantly, I didn't want to. I realized that socializing at this age is often just a mask for insecurity. We gather in herds to assure ourselves we still exist. I put my drink down on a table. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. I walked out the back door into the cool night air. The silence of the parking lot was the most beautiful thing I had heard all night. I got in my car, drove home, and swore an oath, never again. I realized that night I would rather sit in an empty room and stare at a wall than spend one more minute pretending to care about someone's grandson's violin recital. Call me selfish, call me bitter. I call it standards. But John, you ask, aren't you lonely? Don't you miss people? This brings us to the most critical distinction in the English language. Loneliness versus solitude. Society uses these words interchangeably. They are wrong. They are opposites. Loneliness is the pain of being alone. It is a deficiency. It is looking at an empty chair and feeling a hole in your chest. It is a passive state. It happens to you. Loneliness is sitting by the phone, waiting for it to ring, feeling like the world has forgotten you. Solitude, on the other hand, is the glory of being alone. It is an abundance. It is looking at an empty chair and feeling the luxury of space. It is an active state. You choose it. Solitude is unplugging the phone because the world is too loud. When I came home from that reunion, I entered my house. It was quiet. No grandkids screaming. No wife asking me to fix the sink, God rest her soul. No friends complaining about their hips. I sat in my favorite armchair. I poured a glass of single malt scotch. I put on a vinyl record of Miles Davis, and I felt full. In solitude, you are not alone. You are with yourself. And if you like yourself, that is excellent company. I realized that for 75 years, I had never really met myself. I was always John the son, John the husband, John the father, John the employee, John the friend. I was always performing a role for an audience. Now, the audience has gone home. The curtains have closed. And for the first time, I can take off the costume. I can take off the makeup. I can just be. I discovered that I like silence. I discovered that I like reading about ancient Rome for 3 hours straight without anyone asking me, "What are you doing?" I discovered that I like eating cereal for dinner if I damn well please. This is not sad. This is the ultimate freedom. It is the freedom of a king in his own castle, unbothered by the petty squabbles of the court. People say humans are social animals. Maybe, but humans are also spiritual animals. And you cannot find your spirit in a crowded room full of noise. You can only find it in the quiet. So, when people look at me with pity and say, "Oh, poor John, he has no friends. He is all alone," I want to laugh. They see a prisoner in solitary confinement. I see a monk in a sanctuary. They are trapped in the endless cycle of pleasing others. I have escaped. But achieving this state requires protection. You have to defend your solitude like a fortress, because there are forces trying to break in. We call them the energy vampires. Once you find peace in solitude, you become a target. There are people out there who hate silence. They need to fill it with noise, drama, and complaints. and they want to use your ears as their trash can. I call them energy vampires. At Shoptazech Shichinch. Our biological battery is old. It doesn't hold a charge like it used to. I wake up with a limited amount of mental energy. I can read a book, work in the garden, or listen to someone complain. I cannot do all three. I had a friend named Jerry. We used to meet for coffee every Tuesday. For 10 years, I thought we were friends, but then I started analyzing our conversations. Jerry talked for 55 minutes. I talked for 5 minutes. Jerry talked about his ex-wife who he divorced 20 years ago. Jerry talked about how the country is going to hell. Jerry talked about how his neighbor's dog barks too much. Every Tuesday, I would leave that coffee shop with a headache. My shoulders felt heavy. I felt depressed. I realized Jerry wasn't looking for a friend. He was looking for an emotional garbage truck. He stored up all his trash during the week. And on Tuesday, he dumped it all into my living room. He drove away feeling light and clean. I was left standing in his filth. So, I did the unthinkable. I fired him. The next time he called, I didn't answer. He called again. I texted him, Jerry, I'm taking some time for myself these days. I won't be able to meet for coffee for a while. Was it ruthless? Yes. Was it necessary? Absolutely. You see, at this stage of life, time is not money, time is life. Every minute I spend listening to toxic negativity is a minute I am stealing from my own peace. It is a minute I will never get back. If someone leaves you feeling drained, exhausted, or angry after every interaction, cut the cord. You don't owe them your ear. You don't owe them your remaining years. Protect your battery. It's the only one you have left. Once you eliminate the vampires and stop attending the performances, you unlock a level of freedom that young people cannot even comprehend. I call it the ecstasy of invisible freedom. When you have no friends to impress, you can finally stop acting. Do you realize how much energy we spend acting? When I go out with friends, I have to dress appropriately, button my shirt, wear uncomfortable shoes, suck in my stomach, monitor my opinions, don't talk about politics, don't offend anyone, smile when I don't want to smile. It is a performance, and the curtain never drops. But now in my solitude, I wear sweatpants that are 10 years old. They are ugly, they have a stain on the knee, but my God, they are comfortable. They are like a cloud for my legs. I eat what I want. If I want oatmeal for dinner, I eat oatmeal. If I want to eat ice cream straight from the carton standing in front of the open fridge, I do it. Nobody is there to say, John, that's not healthy. I govern my own time. This is the biggest luxury. If I wake up and want to stare at the birds in the feeder for 2 hours, I do it. I don't have to check my watch. I don't have to rush to meet anyone for lunch. I don't have to explain myself. There's a Japanese concept called ma-negative space. It emphasizes the value of emptiness. The silence between notes makes the music beautiful. The empty space in a room makes it livable. My life is now full of ma. It is spacious. It is breathable. Young people are terrified of FOMO, fear of missing out. I have mastered JOMO, joy of missing out. I see my neighbor rushing to his car, late for a dinner party. Looking stressed, I wave at him from my porch. Holding my tea, I am missing out on the traffic. I am missing out on the bad food. I am missing out on the fake laughter. And the joy is intoxicating. Let me be clear. I am not telling you to hate people. I am not telling you to be a hermit living in a cave. I am telling you to raise your standards. At Shaptazech Shichinch. The VIP section of your life should be very, very small. The bouncer at the door should be ruthless. If someone does not bring peace, joy, or wisdom into your life, they do not get in. The entry fee is too high now. People ask me, John, who will you talk to if you have no friends? I talk to the most interesting person I know, myself. I have lived 75 years. I have seen wars, loved women, built businesses, buried parents, raised children. My mind is a library of stories. I am never bored because I am exploring the archives of my own existence. When you learn to be your own best friend, you are never lonely. You are self-contained. You are bulletproof. So, if your phone isn't ringing today, don't be sad. Celebrate it. Look at that empty chair and say welcome. Silence. I have been waiting for you. If this video resonated with you, you are probably a member of our Solitude Club. We don't have meetings because, well, we prefer to be alone, but you can subscribe. That's enough connection for us. And join me tomorrow. We are going to talk about vanity. The title is Stop Trying to Look Younger. It's pathetic. We are going to destroy the anti-aging industry and learn to love our wrinkles. Enjoy your tea. Enjoy your silence.